nobody understands me, I don't fit in anywhere, is like the prevailing memory from my childhood. And I also think it was a superpower because like I kind of like, I'm like, all right, well, I'm very comfortable just like not being understood. I like to think that like I want to be a massively influential micro VC. Because I think that you can shape the conversation through influence and through culture and through words and through actions. I have set up my fund, and I continue to try to set up my fund in such a way that the better I do my job, the more I accomplish my mission. My mission being, to create access to different types of people at the highest levels of leadership. Right? Like I want to see it like the NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange be full of leaders that look more like the rest of the world, and I'd love to invest in them today. I will go through this battery of questions, and there are things like, are they learners? Just to make sure that I truly did my diligence. And one of the questions in that questionnaire says, what will the world look like when this company is massively successful? And it turns out that when you force yourself to answer like the positive and negative externalities question, you end up being kind of an impact fund.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Alone Together. Welcome from the glamorous Spring Hill Suites in Frederica, Delaware. People think, Leslie, what we do is glamorous. This is glamour. I am so honored to have I feel like we're friends, even though A, we have never met in person, but B, we do so on cap tables, and C, it's my sister. I feel like kindred sister from another mister, Leslie Feinzaig from Graham and Walker, who I've been dying to get onto the pod for, I don't know, a year. Have I been chasing you for a year?
A little bit, yeah. Thank you for the persistence. I appreciate it.
No, listen, good people are worth investing in. Gang, listeners, the reason I'm so excited for this is if you follow Leslie, first of all, you should. She is one of the most authentic people out there in the venture world, and particularly for those of us in the early stage venture world. She is both prolific and profound, and it's a rare combination to have someone like that. It's an honor to be on the cap table. It's an honor to have you show. Thank you for making time post-parenting.
I feel like that was so wonderful that you just said about me that I don't want to say anything and disappoint people now. Let's just
well, we got a lot. We got time. So there's plenty of time for disappointment for all of us.
Great.
As we talked about, like this show is really about the human side of venture. So I want to really tech into the venture, the human side, but just for some really brief context, people who don't know you, can you give us just a little bit of background that'll provide some scaffolding to talk about the human side? But tell me about Graham and Walker and you and the fund, just to be able to set up and people could contextualize all the human fun stuff that I want to talk. We talked about trying to get together. Would you do us that honor?
I will give you the as quick as possible version of who I am and how we got here. So let's see. I guess I'll just start with me. I was born and raised in Costa Rica, which I know you want to talk about later. I moved to America by way of a life-changing scholarship to go to Harvard Business School. I spent the first few years out of HBS, first in strategy consulting, and then in big tech, what I like to call my green card years. I was trying to procure said green card, and then immediately after having full work authorization, I went to work in startups. And a few years into kind of a couple of exec startup roles, I decided to try to start my own company. And I went out and I did all the things that you do. And, I tried to go out and raise venture after having bootstrapped my company for something like 6 months and having some really good traction. And in the process of trying to raise capital for that company, I started a meetup of other women who are also trying to raise venture capital. And my company didn't go anywhere. But the little meetup became just the most important thing that I had ever built, the largest community of venture-backed female founders in America. For the better part of a decade, I have spent my time helping as many founders as possible to learn the ropes to raise their first round of external financing. We've helped something like 1,500 first-time founders, primarily founders who are less legible to mainstream venture capital, not well connected, don't know how to play the game. They're outsiders. They don't fit the mold. And collectively, they've raised over 300 million in pre-seed capital. And in the middle of that journey, or kind of 4 years into that journey, I decided to try to raise my own venture capital fund to capitalize on this proprietary source of deal flow that I had created through my community. And that is Graham and Walker. We are a boutique pre-seed seed fund. We invest in what I call pre-consensus founders. These are lower legibility outsiders, and we try to sprinkle star power. We try to kind of help them connect through our own LPs, our own network into mainstream VC, and kind of act as the bridge, right? Almost like as the hinge in between the outside and the inside. And so that's us. That's criminal.
It's amazing. I definitely want to talk about this idea of hinge, and I want to talk about this inside or outside, and I want to talk about this notion of legibility. But a standard question, particularly since you started with your childhood story in Costa Rica, I started asking this question tongue in cheek, but I actually want to ask this legitimately, which is, so looking back at your time and growing up in Costa Rica, can you draw a line between your time there and what the girl in Costa Rica, why this fund and where you are today? Or to ask this question more straightforwardly, what childhood trauma have you not rectified that has made you want to start this fund?
I mean, that one I can answer, and that
Okay,
is
great. Let's do
the
that. Let's do that.
I think that I just grew up with a really strong sense of like, why not me? Like, why not us? So it is June 30th that we're recording this. We are 2 weeks into World Cup. And so in my house, and this is going somewhere, I promise, my house is all World Cup all the time. And what that brings for me is that I grew up in Costa Rica. This is a country that when I was growing up, nobody knew where it was, what it was. It was like the steep suns, and we were, you know, a proud, humble nation that was essentially unknown and invisible to the world. And it's crazy how much it shaped my identity. I have this like strong recollection of coming to America when I was young, whatever, like Disney World trip or where, like, the vacations that my dad and mom took me on when I was a kid. And we came to America and saying that we were from Costa Rica, and even all the way into HBS, which was in the 2000s, and people not knowing where that was. Now, today, everybody, today Costa Rica has like a big brand name because they've done a really good job with like marketing themselves as an ecotourism destination. But back then, nobody knew who we were. And anytime that the country appeared anywhere on the world stage, it was this like massive, massive, massive underdog. And it always just really inspired me. Uh, and like, I always had this like chip on my shoulder of like, why are we less than? Um, why can't someone from this humble nation land on the moon, right? Like we had one extremely famous man who was an astronaut. Kang Cheng is actually my best friend's second cousin. And like this is one of the most inspiring people I know, right? Or like, the first woman who medaled in the Olympics. This was I think it was 1996. I mean, these stories of like people who come from nowhere and are still able to achieve their dreams and things that everybody else says are impossible. And I don't know, I've carried this thread throughout my life of like, why not us? Why not me? Why 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 can't everyone have access to achieving the impossible and achieving the unimaginable? In that sense, yes, absolutely a through line. But in the sense of like, did I ever dream that this would be my life? Like, no, I mean, not to overstate my upbringing, right? I grew up middle class. Education was really important in my family. But you know, every job that I've had post business school, I promise you, I did not know existed pre business school. I did not know the job titles. I did not know what a product manager was, what a strategy consultant was. I sure as hell did not know what a venture capitalist was. Entrepreneur meant somebody who opened a store downtown, right? Like that's what entrepreneurship was. It was like small business entrepreneurship. So in that sense, for me, like getting that scholarship to go to HBS was like very much there's a before and after and what the possibilities were in my life and like what kind of outcome I can expect for myself. And how big can I realistically dream? Yeah, I don't think that I ever imagined that this could be my life. And I say that with humility, but I feel like that little girl would probably be pretty proud.
Well, I want to, I'm glad you brought up how big can I dream and that little girl, because I would love for you to tell me two stories and we'll get into the venture side. Behind you, I see
Mhm.
pictures of your children, I believe.
Yeah, it's Dora
And
and Ruth
when,
up there.
amazing. And when you say this pictures, like, why not me? Grow up in Costa Rica, which I've had the pleasure of being visiting. I have this vision of you saying, why not me? One, can you paint me a picture? Is there a memory in your mind, specifically an experience that you're like, yes, I asked this in this situation? Can you paint a picture, just like you see your children, of Leslie saying this, where this question was so pervasive and straightforward? What is that? Is there a picture in your mind that sticks out?
Oh man, I don't know. I guess like my prevailing memory from childhood is just being one, an outsider everywhere. Even within my own community, very much like a outsider 100% of the time. And that really shaped me too. Yeah. So like further explanation, I am the granddaughter of Polish refugees. So my grandparents escaped Poland before the Holocaust, tried to come to America, did not make it into America because the borders were closed, kept sailing south, and ended up in Costa Rica. And so I grew up Jewish in a Catholic country. My parents put me in a British school. I was one of three Jewish kids in the entire K through 12. All my friends went to catechism and did their communion. And all of my friends and I was very much different, very, very different from all of them. And then if I ever spent time in the Jewish community, I was the girl that went to Catholic school. And so that kind of like, I'm always an outsider. Nobody understands me. I don't fit in anywhere. Is like the prevailing memory from my childhood. And I also think it was a superpower because like, I kind of like, I'm like, all right, well, I'm very comfortable just like not being understood. And the other is extreme stubbornness. Like, if my parents ever said, like, "No, you can't do that," like, nobody could ever tell me what I could or could not do, probably to this day.
So when you tell the first two parts of the story, I see so much lines between this idea of outsider everywhere, why not me, stubbornness, and then your story, starting your community founder, Female Founders Alliance, and building a place for outsiders, insiders, this idea of legibility and illegibility, which is basically just code for being an outsider, right?
Mhm.
And you've made it your mantra. I don't know. It's a pretty straightforward line, at least
I think so,
for
yeah.
this one particular listener.
I think
You
so.
asked us one question, and this will be a springboard for other stuff. You said you never could imagine how big it could be. So it is June 30th, 2026, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific. At this particular moment, how big do you think Graham and Walker can be? Where do you let yourself dream
Yeah.
today?
I mean, I think that it depends on what you mean by big. I
What do you mean by big, since it's your own definition? This
well,
is
I
your own
think I think
rhetorical
that, like,
question.
you can measure it in dollars or you can measure it in influence, and I think that in terms of dollars, I believe really strongly in like venture capital fund size discipline. Like I think where the market is today, I think small is beautiful. And I can imagine Graham and Walker staying very consistently at the precedent seed with price discipline. And that's kind of what I want for it. So are we ever going to be a mega fund? Probably not. Unless I like merge with someone else. You know what I mean? Like that is not where I shine, doing like multi-stage investing and like spreadsheet based investing. In terms of influence, like I think that today, this is a hard thing to say out loud, especially being recorded, but I feel like I have way more brand and way more influence than my fund size would ever, like anybody would ever imagine based on my fund size. Like I like to think that like I want to be a massively influential micro VC. Because I think that you can shape the conversation through influence and through culture and through words and through actions and through content like this video. And so in that sense, you know, I I, I don't know how you measure it, but I do think that like part of what is really fun for me about this job is to have a say in where the industry goes and what founders understand about venture capital and like um, shape the conversation. And I think in that sense, I don't know, the sky's the limit.
Maybe then don't think about, like, let me ask you a question. How do you balance the two between, and I want to return to where the industry goes, because you've had a huge say and voice in where the industry goes. And I agree with you, it's outstripped. We're going to return to that. But instead of thinking about big as either dollars or influence, it sounds like you're balancing both. I'm curious how you think about your own day to day. How do you balance both of these things? Small is beautiful, but we all need dollars and AUM to whatever,
Yeah.
take care of those
I
people
mean,
behind you in your picture, et cetera. Like, how do you balance both?
I I guess I don't think about it as like how am I balancing both. I think that I have one job, and that job is to maximize returns for my LPs. And the way that I do that, like I have set up my fund, and I continue to try to set up my fund in such a way that the better I do my job, the more I accomplish my mission. My mission being, to create access to different types of people at the highest levels of leadership. Right? Like I want to see it like the Nasdaq and New York Stock Exchange be full of leaders that look more like the rest of the world. And I'd love to invest in them today. And so my job is to build my deal flow and improve my uh, skills as an investor. Like do a really, really good job selecting and supporting in such a way that I can accomplish my mission and maximize return for my investors. And I feel like to the extent that being loud or like having influence helps me stand up from the crowd, that maximizes returns for my investor. You know what I mean? Like a part of what I
Yeah.
wanted, like I am signaling, like you and I are signaling, like I am signaling the type of founder that I want to invest in. And that's not to say that I only want to invest in a certain like set of like physical characteristics about a person. Like there's also a like a type of human that we're trying to attract. And the better known we are and the more consistent that I am with like speaking my values, the more we attract the right type of founder.
Let, let's pull on this thread,
Okay.
because you say a lot of stuff about where you think VC, if I followed your line, it's signaling. And you say a lot of stuff that's incredibly provocative. And I love, by the way, about where venture should go. And you hope that it signals the right people from a founder basis, if I followed the line, who will find you. Also, change a little venture along the way. I would love to, maybe this part, I'd love to tuck into a little bit of the things that you've talked about in venture, because it is definitely worth talking about. You've everything from, VCs for Kamala to taking, Andreessen's not a VC firm. And I would love to talk about that and some of your experience with that, and then tell me about the effects that it has with founders, if that's okay. If that's okay with
Yeah.
you. Can
I
we talk
mean,
about the first part? Like, when you look at being loud, just what are some of the things that you need to happen? You've talked about, politics, immigration, AI, large and small. Like, do you have like a quick treatise about where you think venture
it's so
needs to
funny.
go?
I sometimes like I can recognize and I will even say that about myself. Like I'm known for being loud online, but the reality is that I like self-censor on a weekly basis. So like
I would love to be inside that sensor room and hear what goes on the cutting
This
room
is why
floor.
I don't do I rarely do somebody's podcast. Like this is why you were chasing me for here because I don't do a lot of this stuff. And part of that is because I legitimately believe in being thoughtful and changing your mind. And I feel like the more that you put yourself out there, the less people give you grace to learn and grow as a human and like come up, to like change your position on something. I think that that's like not something that like the online audience appreciates. So no, I mean I guess that I live by a set of values, and I'm not afraid to stand behind those. And, you know, these values are not perfectly aligned with American political lines in any way. They truly don't, but they do. They matter to me, and I feel like part of what has made the Female Founders Alliance and then Graham and Walker special is that we lead with values, and that attracts people who believe in that, right? Like, who believe in, like, the democratization of the American dream, which also means that we need a functioning democracy, which, like, leads to VCs or comma, right? Like, I'm not afraid to stand behind those because I just feel like life is too short to not be who you
Yeah.
are and stand for something.
Can you back up? So can we talk about that for a second, if it's okay with you? Because I think that was an important moment, at least as an early stage manager. Uh, Can you, and some people may not know this, and I'm sure they may be furiously Googling. Can you give a quick background on VCs for Kamala, and then now, given where we are in 2026, I would love a retrospective on that movement, both politically and as a venture perspective. I'm curious. I would just love to. I've been meaning to unpack this with you in real
I
time,
don't
and I
know
would
that I
just love
wanna
to hear your
go
thoughts.
I mean, I
That's
don't know
okay.
that
We
I
can.
wanna go super deep on this. Anytime this comes up, I get trolls and, like, ugly stuff online,
Okay.
to this day. I guess what I would say is the 2024 election was about, for big VC, the 2024 election was about, like, crypto policy and Lena Khan, right? Like, it was about, like, the health of their businesses. But for a lot of other people, the 2024 election was about values. And when big VC, just like a it was like a dozen prominent men stated very clearly that, like, in that election they were voting for their pockets, a lot of people in my community started sort of asking, like, my portfolio, my community, like, is that all a venture, right? Like, is that the category? Is that the industry? Like, you guys are all a bunch of hypocrites. Just like 4 years ago, you were talking about, how much you cared about people. And it felt important to me to say, not all of us, and, like, they don't speak for me. And that very quickly escalated over a weekend to a pledge that was signed by ultimately, like, something like 800 of the most prominent, including some of the most prominent venture capitalists out there. In the moment, it was a pledge across, it was a pledge for a Democratic candidate, but those 800 VCs were very much across party lines. And I would do it again. It was one of those, like, lead from behind moments, right? Like, I was pretty unknown outside of the sort of my world and my community, and became a lot more prominent in that moment. And yeah, like, I think many of the fears that that group had have borne out, and I don't really have much more to
Sure.
say about it. Like, I
Yeah.
if one day one of my daughters is worried about the world and asks if she should speak up, I will always tell her yes. And I kind
Yeah.
of try to lead my life by, like, if my kids were in this situation, what would I tell them? So I would do it again.
Do you talk to your kids about what you do?
They've only started to discover it recently. They're 10 and 7. For a long time, they just thought that I, like, talk to mommies for a living. They see me on Zoom all the time, and, like, mostly with with women. They have learned about, like, investing. I don't think that they understand venture, but they have a concept that it's like other people's businesses. I recently took them to a keynote that I did, and that was the first time that they saw me on stage, and that was pretty fun. And they felt like they were famous because everybody came up. I mean, they're so cute, right? Like, everybody came up to them afterwards, and so they thought, "Mommy, oh my god, we're famous." Yes. I don't know. Like, one of the great things about having children, at least for me, is that it makes it's like an incredibly clarifying thing because if you ever
Yeah,
wonder, like truly, if you ever wonder what the right thing is, you just ask yourself, what would I tell my kid?
yeah,
And you just know. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like you just know. Like
I I think is why it resonates so much. I mean, so much of my story is around my kids, and
mm. How old are your kids?
my kids are 21. Fast forward a couple months when this hits, 21, 19, and 17. You can
Okay.
minus one right now, so I'm a little bit further along. And one of the reasons, I don't know if I told you the story, that I got in, I started getting into venture was I was at Bank of America. And my then 10-year-old, now 20, soon to be 21-year-old kid says, "Daddy, what do you do for a living?" And then I explained what I did at digital strategy. And I was working at the US Consumer. I had a big corporate job. And he just looked
Yeah.
at me straight eyed and goes, "I think you just fly in planes and swear at people." And I was just like, yeah. And that
Oh,
was,
oh
I
man.
mean, talk about a knife
Yeah.
right up the rib cage. So when I started this firm, I've tried so hard to have them part of the thesis, not directly, of course, but I invest in what you said resonates with me so hard because I say part what's your definition of impact? And I have a very loose, I don't do any of this form boxing, UN SDG stuff, or honestly, I center on, is this build a world for my unborn grandchildren?
Mhm.
And that's kind of
Yeah.
how I think through it. And then my sub IC on this is I pitch all my companies to my kids.
Do you? I guess
And
they're older, so you can do that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. But even when they were that age, I did a version of it so that they understood what I did. A lot of it was born out of my own trauma, and that like that moment of you just fly on planes and swear at people is still traumatic for me. And so I do
It's
bring
like
my
so
kids in.
clarifying though. Like this way I feel like, man, having kids, it's such a gift, right? I mean, also such a pain in the ass, but such a gift. Like so clarifying, like and just so
Yeah.
wonderful. I'm obsessed with my kids. I'm I adore my kids. I feel like they just
Yeah.
made me the best version of myself possible.
And I love the fact that you said what you said sparked it for me about, and I know we don't want to, we can move on from visas for comma, but I want to leave from the point of reflection in that it led you to back the insight about your kids. And I'm just sharing, this whole story is like two GPs in a bar just talking or a coffee shop. I will tell you from my perspective, and I'm much earlier along than you are, but the more I've brought my kids into the fund, the more, I don't know, fulfilled I feel
I
about what it
100%.
is I
Yeah.
do. And the more clarity I have. So it's an invitation for you to think through it, or it's something we can revisit
I
another time.
yeah, I mean, a few thoughts to go on. So first, I'm sort of 10 years behind you with the kids' ages, I think. The past couple of years, it's funny because I raised my first fund through COVID. And
Amazing.
so I raised it without having to fly, right? Because nobody was flying. And I started investing and still like through 2022, it wasn't until like 2023 that we started doing events. And then I feel like 2024, 25, I was just on an airplane like every other week. Like every 2 to 3 weeks, I was on an airplane. And sometime around last fall, I had this breaking point where I was like, okay, so the girls at that point, 9 and 6, this is the best time. Like, never gonna get this time again, truly. And I'm missing it. Like, I'm missing all of it because I'm on an airplane. And so I had to like recalibrate for myself, like, which by the way, I think you can only really do if you are your own boss, right? Like, if you truly own your time, I had to recalibrate, like, what is worth me getting on an airplane for? And I've pretty dramatically reduced my travel since then. So like for calendar
Yeah.
year 2026, I'm doing a much better job of just being here and like enjoying them, you know? And the other thing that comes up for me as you were talking about your fund is this idea of impact, which I don't know if you want to talk about, but like I don't consider Graham Walker an impact fund at all. I don't sell it as an impact fund. I don't
Oh,
measure anything as impact. I have a mission, which is separate. But the funny thing is that when I started investing, my own startup experience really, I'm like, how much should I go into this? But suffice to say that, I ran product and marketing for a gaming and e-commerce company. And I was really good at my job. And the better I do my job, the more people spent time on their phone looking at their screen and like buying stuff that they did not need. And it really, that was like another kind of, villain origin story where I was like, wow, like at some point it just occurred to me, I'm like, if they're looking at their phone all day, they're not living their lives. Like, I don't know that I want to be a part of that. And so when I started investing, we have a battery of questions that I ask as a kind of to hold myself accountable before the moment of like actually saying yes. So like at the end of diligence, I will go through this battery of questions and there are things like, are they learners? Just to make sure that I truly did my diligence. And one of the questions in that questionnaire says, what will the world look like when this company is massively successful? And it turns out that when you force yourself to answer like the positive and negative externalities question, you end up being kind of an impact fund. Or like at least you end up like passing on things because you're like, oh, actually that's dystopian. I don't want to be a part of that. And so now a lot of my investments do kind of can be seen by other investors as like impact oriented, non-concessionary impact oriented companies. But it really just came out of like trying to like not invest things that like ruin humanity, right? Like which seems so simple. I mean, I'm like, why doesn't everybody do this? I like legitimately don't get it. But I guess you would pass on a
Yeah,
lot of great kind of on paper investment opportunities if you always said no to things that have externalities.
for me, it's signaling. I mean, two things come in mind. So it's funny. So the way I don't bury it at the end, I put it in the beginning.
Hmm.
On our intake form at Sidecut, we ask two questions since our thesis is coachable superheroes. We ask all the normal stuff, but the weird questions we ask are who's the best coach or teacher you've ever had and why? And I read them.
Hmm.
And I actually read them, not AI read them. And we could talk about reading. The second one is what evil are you fighting in the world? If anything, when I remember you were in the back of my head living rent free because one thing I always admire about you is you turn things up to 11 and are so pointed. And believe it or not, you were an inspiration around that
Well,
question
thank
because
you. Oh,
I want to
Mike,
know now. No, it's true. I want to know now. I don't want to know. I'm not going to waste your if and it's funny when you read some of these answers that are like, "Oh, we're fighting evil by providing access to a secondary tranche of digital media set on OOT." And you're like, "Yeah, that doesn't fly."
totally.
And then you get to see how the founder thinks of it in their own words. And that is incredibly illuminating. And I had another LP say to me, like, don't say you're an impact fund. And I used to follow that in the beginning, like try to get along. At the end of the day, it just wasted my time. So now
Hmm.
and so this
Yeah,
LP who is I think is gonna he's trying to give me coaching and is kind of trying for an impact check. A fund of funds, by the way, which we think is a class is it's a wild, extinct wildebeest in the fundraising landscape. I just said, nope, I'm here for it. Like it's a feature, not a bug. If you, I talk about impact, I care about impact. I invest for my kids. If you don't like it, there's other
you're the
funds
wrong
for you.
LP. Yeah, I think that
And and it's taken me to have courage. And I didn't own this. I mean, I've been in this game now, raising this fund my own, well, whatever, for some time. And it's only in the last quarter, or since we're in World Cup, I feel like now I'm in stoppage time to bring that's how I don't know if that and believe it or not, you a lot of what you write is very much an inspiration for me on and
thank
I
you.
think about and you along with other people like, you know, Samara or another one is on the pod is my friend and I kind of landed on this too. I'm curious about your reactions. Ethan Austin in Outside Ventures, he just like,
Great guy.
tell me your
Love.
idea about, yeah, what you're talking about fundraising. He's like, honestly, I just expose more and more of myself till it gets weirder or weirder until they say yes or no.
Well,
So I
you have
and
to.
both you and him kind of like put a peanut butter and jelly sandwich around this thought of just like for those who are listening, it will take courage for you, and you're going to go through your inadequacy if you're starting your own fund. But the faster you can just be who you are unapologetically, I think the more success you have, even though it's like super scary, you're going to alienate people, right? I don't know.
Totally.
That's what I think.
I mean, it is really scary to put yourself out there, but it's also the kind of best use of your time and energy, right? Because like the people who, so first of all, I believe that if you try to pretend to be someone that you are not, that is going to suck up all your energy. And I would rather use my energy being a good investor. Like it's sort of like to me, it's like I can either try to put up an act all the time, or I could be myself and get really good at actually doing a job. So that's number one. And I've always thought that way. Like even like I remember dating right like 10 years ago. Like you can try to pretend to be someone you're not on a date, but like one day he's going to discover. And like, you might as well just be yourself and see if you match. And with LPs, I think that it's kind of the same thing. Like they're probably going to say no anyway. And so wouldn't you rather just find the right people? Now, what's hard is there are times where in like there are cycles in the economy where like even the right people are going to say no because they're not deploying, because they're over allocated or whatever. And that is just going to be really, really, really tough. But the wrong LPs are going to say no anyway. Might as well discover it sooner.
Yeah. One of the
It's
things I
brutal. Like
admire
it's
about
so
your
much
writing,
easier to say it than
it
like to
is
live it. But
no, it is true. It is true. And can I ask you a question about what you write? Like, so one of the things
Mhm.
I appreciate about all the content you put out, so many LPs like this idea of you want to show like, oh, like we have all this
Thought leaders.
marks and winning and raising like your stuff is nothing about that. When I read your stuff, it is
No.
so little about the winning. It is all about the journey and the discovery and
Thank
the
you.
introspection. I'm curious, how does that square? And again, I don't want to talk about fundraising, but like, how do you square this whole like how do you square your content strategy? What goes in your content strategy in signaling? Because so much of what you write it's very process, it's very introspective. And it's I think you do this, I think Charles does this, I think other people, Charles Hudson from there's people who do this and are very introspective
Oh
about this.
gosh.
What goes into like when you sit down and pen a piece, or what is that process? Is it strategic, or is it like here's what's top of the dome and I'm just going to write 500 words. Here you go.
I have a couple of times in the last 10 years hired someone to help me make it more strategic. And both times ended
Hmm.
up firing them. And not because they're not great
I
people.
was just like, wow.
No, so like not because they're not great people, but because I think that oh, I don't know. I kind of don't know how to answer this without because I want without like bright like so first of all, one of the most fulfilling things you can tell me is that you were touched by my writing or speaking. So like this is like one of the best feelings for me is to actually
Oh, I'm a fanboy.
like
I'm a fanboy. Like,
thank you. But that is like I feel like I can with who I am and how God made me, one of the best things that I can do is like speak and write and touch people. And it doesn't work for me when it's not when it's like when it doesn't feel genuine and like authentic and of the moment. So it just doesn't work. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like I guess
well,
if I really
how do you do
invested
it?
in
Do you
like a
just like
PR person to manage, what I do is
oh,
the
sorry,
opposite.
we have a
Like
lag.
I
Yeah.
what I do is the opposite. I have like a running list of things that are ideas that I want to write about. And I try to stick to a schedule, although I'm like 2 weeks behind right now. Like this is the longest I've ever gone without
Which is
publishing, or for like a year and a half, had been really good about publishing every 3 to 4 weeks. And right now I've gone 6 weeks. So I'm a little bit overdue. And that's because I have a lot of things going on in my life. But basically I have this like list of ideas and I kind of just try to pick one and what I really try to do is save me from myself, like rescue me from sort of being too topical. And so sometimes if there's something that I'm very, very heated about, I will just leave it parked for a long time. I usually because I don't want the person who inspired it to know that it was Bob. Like I don't want to like I don't want to subtweet anyone. I don't want to make founders feel like they can't talk to me. But and usually if I write about something that is inspired by a founder conversation, it is actually inspired by a lot of founder conversations, not like a single founder. And I don't want anyone to feel like they can't. So I'll just really separate things temporaneously. Like I'll leave it in my list and I'll come back to it 6 months later. And that's when it comes to founders. When it comes to like talking about venture capital, I don't know. Like I don't really have a strategy of like, I mean, like I said, I have tried to be put in a regiment, but I find that like most folks that you can hire to do this stuff for you, what they're really good at is like they want to ghostwrite for you. And I don't actually want anybody to ghostwrite for me. Like I want to do my own writing. That's the part that I love. And then I would love to have somebody to amplify it, but that's kind of a harder thing. So I just
yeah.
do it myself. I don't know. There's no
I was
strategy.
surprised when you said
Like there's just
no.
like
I get it.
I just want to write and try to not hurt anybody in the process, I guess is what I want to do.
I was really impressed when you said you hired someone. I was like, wow, I need their number because everything you write seems so much like
No.
you. And wow,
Yeah, no, it
that
is
is
me. It's like
so
100% me. And like I
d-
if I go to those people like yeah, everything that you I think with like one exception from 2019 or 20, everything that you read out there is written by me. There's,
awesome.
no
It shows.
AI, no like, and it's because I love to write. Like that's it.
This
There's no
this is a
secret.
good
It's
jumping
just part
off
of who I
point.
am.
Yeah, can I? This is a good jumping off point because I want to ask it about. You've written a lot about the future of AI and VC, and it feels particularly timely. You write a lot about being human, from your writing to how you screen your chief of staff. So you come off as a very human person, and
I am
AI.
on team
I'm
human,
curious. Do you?
which is I can't
Yeah,
say
you're a
that for
team
all
human.
VCs, but I am team human.
So tell me about what do our listeners need to know about what you think about the future of AI and the intersection of venture, and maybe even our little corner of early stage venture. How do you think about the future of this intersecting?
I mean, it is clearly a platform shift, right? Like enormous opportunity. And I think it has the potential to make a lot of people's lives a lot better. And I'm excited to invest in that potential. I think it also, different parts of the tools that AI is powering have negative externalities. And I think that it's going to take a lot of people to kind of opt out or to kind of opt into regulating it and like watch themselves. Just like with any technology, it has its pros and it has its cons. I do think it is absolutely world changing. And, you can kind of like on the one
But
hand,
what's a bridge too far for you? What's a bridge too far for you? I mean, so I would love to double
and
click and like
in
where
what sense?
it's good for this. I don't know. Like, let's just
I
talk
mean, I
about some of
guess
the
the
stuff in
like
terms of what AI is supposed to do. Like maybe just the job of VCs, right? In terms of
okay,
what we
I'll
have
give
to
you a
do,
really
and maybe we
concrete
can tighten the parameters.
example.
Yeah.
I think a bridge too far is when you, as an individual, let AI do the thinking for you, the cognitive surrender. That is, and like it's easy to do that. It's such a shortcut. But I think that you're not going to legislate away what AI can do. I think that as a human, you need to choose to keep your original thinking, kind of like you need to choose to not spend all your time watching brain rot videos. Like just because that stuff is available, it doesn't mean that you have to opt into it. And so these days, I see like a lot of AI decks, and they all look the same. And I feel like those founders are committing cognitive surrender. And I have like zero interest in investing in
Yeah.
in the average answer of the entire internet. Like I want to know what you think and what makes you special. So that's like a really good example of
Yeah.
like, okay, just because you can, what I want them to do is to take these AI tools and automate away the grind, right? Like automate away all the grunt work that was like keeping you up all night, like, writing spreadsheets or whatever. Like by all means, automate away all the research, automate away all the grunt work. And but keep the original thinking, right? Like we want to know, like I want to know what makes you special. I want to know that you are going to be able to communicate effectively and impactfully so that you can hire people. And you know so that idea of cognitive surrender is like one thing that I pay a lot of attention to. Like, you can opt into using it as an amazing tool that makes a lot of things easier and faster and better, and also you can choose to like continue to
Yeah.
like be human and like own your decisions and own your thinking.
Can I ask about the future of VC? So if you break our jobs down to, sourcing, picking, winning, adding value,
Yeah.
and then do you have commentary for what we have to do? Like, hey, AI is good for this or this particular subtask, and it's not good for this. Any guardrails that got you thinking about the execution of a VC with
I
AI and
mean,
empowerment, and what is off limits? Like that's not. I'm not doing that. This is team human all the way.
as in like for like our job, for you and me.
Well, yeah, for you and me.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it as automating the grunt work, right? So I need to like have a to do a ton of outreach for fundraising purposes. Okay, great. So I'm gonna have like a really great AI powered CRM that's gonna help me keep track of like who heard what when, and is gonna remind me, right? Or like relationship management. Like we have an investment called Goodword that helps me remember like people that, my brain doesn't have the capacity to remember when, 2000 people's birthdays are, but this tool can. So that kind of idea of just like the stuff that is really hard for me to do, like process stuff, documentation stuff, cleanliness stuff, research stuff, all of that. A bridge
Yeah,
too far is like outsourcing getting to know the person, right? Like I'm still going to spend time with every founder and all of their co-founders and trying to understand what makes them special. I'm still
yeah,
going to look through their data rooms and like, trust but verify. I'm still going to try to validate the demand, right? Like go ask someone, have you ever thought about X? Have you ever heard of X? So yeah, just like making up my own mind, I think is like the part that you kind of have to keep going, especially because like, you know, I think that like when I talk about the future of venture capital, I tend to think that venture capital is bifurcating. I think that there's like alpha investing and beta investing. And the more kind of like predictable, repeatable, larger, right? Like investing that you're doing, the more that you can use like the research capabilities of of AI to almost like model out what the future can look like. But when there's nothing, like when there's just like a person, an idea, and some early traction, AI is not going to be good at pattern matching like what can come of this if
right.
you change some of these variables. And so I feel like, there is a there
Yeah.
is a place in our industry for automation. And also I also think that there's a craft in like getting to know people and seeing them and giving them a chance.
And I think that brings back home, like, I think either the the girl in Costa Rica, whatever, like, think "Why not me" is run by, a bunch of LLMs. The vision I have of you is very much like getting the outsiders access, seen and unseen, and I think
I
that
think so.
speaks so much about, like, where you stand in the world.
I think so.
You
I
and
mean,
I
I
could
feel
talk
like
forever, and oh, sorry. Uh,
no, 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 that's okay. We have a little lag, but yeah, I was just going to
we have
underline
a
that
little
point.
lag. No, no, finish that, and then I wanna bring us home on
I
the
mean,
final phase of the show.
listen, in the last couple of years, 2, 3 years, maybe 3 years since GPT-3, I think, and for a while, you started to hear of, like, VCs that were using AI to power pipeline, right? To, like, spot people before others did, and I feel like that, like, that AI would never have spotted me. Like maybe it would spot me today because now I'm super legible, but it would never have spotted me a decade ago. I never would have had a chance. And so, yeah, I feel like it is more important and there's more opportunity than ever in like finding the underdog that has the potential to be the fund returner if you put them in the right circumstances and like give them a chance. And that's not everyone, and that doesn't have a specific gender, color, or characteristic. But they also just like there's a lot of people who don't have the right keyword in the resume that an LLM will pick them up and
Yeah.
make some sort of automated VC invest in them sight unseen. I moved to this country deeply inspired by the idea of the American dream that anybody can pull themselves up by their bootstrap and make something of themselves. And I think that there is no truer incarnation of that than venture capital. And that is what I do.
Yeah.
Ironically, this like girl from Costa Rica that took 19 years to become a US citizen, I spend my days making the American dream possible for more types of people. And that's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
I love that. I love this. AI never would have found you. And
Yeah.
I agree with that. Can I ask you a rapid four questions? I always at the end, and then we can bring this home and let you get on your call. So here, with the parameters of being an investor, can you tell me really quickly um, about the best day you ever had as an investor?
No, there's a lot of best days. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do a pass. How about this? The second question, and we'll give you a pass this one. What about the worst day? Do you have a quick story about the worst day as an investor?
Yeah, this was really, really, really early on, and I used to run an accelerator, and I used to think that feedback was a gift. And there's a founder that I thought I was coaching, and when I wanted to invest in her company, she said no, and she said because I like my coaching had really hurt her. That was like the absolute worst day I had as an investor.
I got to share a story, trauma. One founder during my coaching called me, and I don't know if we're going to believe that, called me an asshole, a real asshole, to my face over text. And the funny thing is, um, I
Yeah, I mean, I could
is
talk a
there?
lot about that. I think, like, she's probably
Uh,
still, badmouthing me all over town, and I had the absolute best intentions. I don't think that I understood that not everyone can be can take feedback in the same way. And I failed to read
uh,
that. And now I spend a lot of time trying to read people before I ever give them any word of feedback. So I feel like in a way that
oh,
experience made me a lot more cautious about who I give feedback to, which is all in bad for founders. But it just made me a lot more cautious. So at the end of the day, I don't want to hurt someone with like directness and like honesty.
oh, wow. This would be a good pretext for a second show because I moved in the other direction. That could be an offline conversation we had. Is there someone you would like to shout out that has been instrumental in getting to where you are today as an investor?
Oh my gosh. When you post this online, I'm gonna tag a lot of people. But the truth is that there isn't just one. There's like, you know, I don't know, there's like at least 10 different investors who came in on my first fund with like very, very, very little evidence to go on it. There's the mentor that has been there for me every step of the way. There's the folks that I have worked with, Rory, Divier over time, Jenna. No, I am the very grateful recipient of like 1,000 people's help. Even as I say that, I guess like the one person that makes the entire thing possible is my husband. I would not be able to be myself on a daily basis if I didn't have him as like my rock and my supporter. I'm
Shout
not
out to the
gonna out him.
spouses.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I do the
He's
same.
like
I
he's
said, like,
quieter online, but he is the
when I leave,
he makes everything possible.
yeah, when I always leave, feels like, I'm sorry, my most important LP is calling. I got to go. The last one, and I think you've given echoes of this, but how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered for making a difference in people's lives.
And you are. You
Thank you.
are. I mean, and we've had many miles, and we have yet to meet in real life. But you've definitely made a difference in mine. A
Thank
lot
you.
of you and our early conversations a year ago is inside cut. Hopefully, a lot of this is in for others as well. So, thank you so much for spending time. I'm making you 2 minutes late for your meeting, but before you go, I just want to again do my third expression of gratitude, but then also leave open for you if people are listening wanted to reach out to you. What is the best way to get a hold of you?
So if you are trying to pitch your company, I ask that you put it in through our website, because that is one of the automations that I built to make sure that I never miss somebody's email or that I never miss somebody's
Mhm,
deck, is a process so that every submission through our
mhm.
website gets reviewed, gets an answer. So that is what I would say. And then, that I think like my Substack is probably the most meaningful thing to me, is to like sign up for my Substack. And, the only time that I reliably reply to people is when they write back to me after something I wrote. You know what I mean? Like that kind of is a conversation starter that like
Yeah,
really is meaningful to me, because I feel like if I put out authenticity, it brings authenticity back. And I build real
yeah.
relationships out of it.
That is a perfect way to end this. This is how I think about you. Founders, same thing in Sidecut. Use our form. We have automations filled up.
Yeah.
If you can't spend time with us, it's probably not a good way to start off a 10-year relationship that we're going to have as a founder and investor. Do us that honor. And I love the fact you do put yourself out there. Thank you for doing that today and elsewhere. Leslie, it has been an honor to have you on
Thank you.
Alone Together. You are definitely another symbol of the fact that although we're solo GPs, there's definitely a community, and I feel very lucky to be able to count you as part of mine.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for having me on. I'm incredibly grateful and so flattered with all the kind things that you said. Love
They're,
when you
they're all
send
true.
deals. So we'll do some more deals together.
Yes, we've only done angel deals. We got to do one out of the fund. We'll do it soon.
All
Thanks
right.
again,
You're
listeners.
on.
We'll see you next time. And thank you for another episode of Alone Together. Take care, everyone.